today's video, we're going to be learning about bulk SMSs. Yes! Yes! I'm hyped. Give me a like and subscribe. Yes! Now let's get it. So let me just enter my phone number. Let me put in my phone number right there. And for the message, let me just say, hello dev. This message is from your website or something, your website. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn on this particular screen recorder. So let me hit on submit. And there's the message. There is the message. So hello dev, this is a message from your website. So as you can see, it works. So let us watch till the very end of this video, where I'll be showing you how you can make this as well from scratch. So without further ado, let's get started. In the liberty of creating a brand new folder called SMS tutorial, and as you can check out, nothing has been added. But first of all, let me explain to you guys the provider that we are going to be using. So the provider is called MobiTech Technologies. So go ahead and visit mobitech.technologies.com, and what is nice about these guys is they are actually very cheap. They're actually very cheap. So as you can see, for Safaricom, for the basic plans, it's 0.35 cents per SMS. So you can pretty much send a lot of SMSs using this plan, and it should actually bill you a very small amount. And for the premium plan, you can actually get this for 0.3 cents per SMS. And for the sender ID, sorry, I have a little cold. For the sender ID, this is basically the name that comes with the SMS. If you did notice before, we have a prefixed number in our sender ID for now, because I'm using the free plan. But if you want your company name to look more professional, you usually pay a one-time fee, and that way you will always have your name on your SMSs. So go ahead and set up an account there, and once you are done with that, come back and watch this video. So once you sign up, you will be sent some details, and you'll be able to log in to a dashboard like this. So once you have this dashboard set up, you pretty much have the API key and the sender ID. So let's get ready and get straight into this video. So if you go to the documentation on this guy's website, you will actually get to find out that implementation is actually pretty simple. So just go into the messaging or bulk SMSs section. This is where you will get the particular documentation for whichever programming language. So as you can see, to get started, you first always, in every API, you have an endpoint that you are going to send the request to. You have the parameters that you need to make the request. So as you can see, in this one, we have the API key. We have the mobile, which is going to be a string. The response type, you can specify either if you want the response to be a JavaScript object, which is JSON, or if you want it as plain text, but we're going to stick to JSON. For the sender name, we will find this on our dashboard, which once you have actually gone through this process, you will be able to have your own custom sender name. For the service ID, this is going to be the identifier allocated to the customer, which is always just by default set to 0. The link ID, just leave this blank, but it is usually received. It's the link ID received on incoming or on demand messages or something. And of course, you have the message, which is going to be a string. So as you can see, they really have a really well laid out API documentation, and you also have status codes. So if you run into any error, before you go ahead and comment, but you are allowed to comment down below if you need clarification. But if you get an error, be sure to reference these status codes to see what particular error you actually ran into. So if you actually get maybe 1013, you know the API key is invalid, maybe the phone number you entered was wrong. That is it for the docs. So let's go ahead and check out this PHP example. So as you can see, it's basically a curl. It's basically using curl to make this particular request. You have the endpoint right there. the encoding, you have the data right here. For the header, you have the API key and the content type. So basically, even at this point, if you were to copy this particular code and go ahead and paste it in your editor, you'd be able to make a request on this. I'm pretty sure you would. You'd be able to make a request on this, by the way, because you pretty much have everything nicely set up. The sender name. So that's the part you'll have to change. Let's go back to the dashboard. And for the sender name, let me just put in the defaults, which is not MobiTech. It's actually 23107, but you'll get yours, so don't use mine. In fact, I'm going to deactivate it after this tutorial, so it's not going to work anyway. So 23107, the mobile number. Let me go ahead and put in mine again. So for the mobile number, it actually accepts this format. It also accepts +254. It also accepts 254. So basically, I don't think you can go wrong in any way with the phone number. So at least you're sorted in that part. And also, let me just put in my API key. You will get yours on the dashboard. So I'm going to blur this one. I'll blur it throughout the video. Okay, so let me just paste that in. Yeah, and I think everything is pretty much all right. So let me just go ahead and test this right here. And let's see if this works. Let's see. So success. It actually did. It actually sent the SMS right here to my phone. Yeah, this is a message regards MobiTech technology. So this actually is okay, but you probably want to actually set this up in a much better way so that you'll be able to get this data dynamically from maybe your phone or something. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's head back into this particular browser, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this as it is, and I'm just going to set up my HTML for this. So let me just go ahead and close these PHP tags, and let's go. So let's just call this bulky SMSs, and in the body, no, this is not a CSS tutorial, so I've just taken the liberty of putting together this particular snippet that will just enable us to go a bit faster on this instead of wasting a lot of time. So you have this CodePen link. So I'll also leave this in the description, so don't even worry about that. So while this loads up, let's give it a moment. I just want to explain to you a few things about the API. Every API has the URL to which you're making the request, and it has some particular data that it requires to make that request possible, which is usually the payload. So the payload has to be encoded in JSON format. So that is exactly what we're going to do. So basically, we're going to be creating an array, and within that array, we're going to input these particular values. We're going to input the values that are required as parameters of the API. So basically, we're going to input, let me go back to the documentation. So basically, we're going to input the mobile number, the response type, the sender name, service ID, and the message. So that is exactly what you're going to do. But first, let us set up this particular layout. So this is really taking its time. So meanwhile, let me just go ahead and import all the style sheets that we need for this. So we're going to be using Bootstrap for this, which is a popular front-end framework. Maybe you've heard of it, unless you are living under a rock or something. Okay, so we have imported that. Okay guys, so this is the particular form that we were using in this particular video. So allow me to just grab the code and we can get going with this video. So let me just grab this particular code and paste it right here. Evo. Then I'm going to leave this particular, let me just hit and give it a comment. So this is the code to send SMS. That it will be right here. So let me just give that space just like that. And so let's get the rest of the markup. So this is the rest of the HTML. Tutorial. Just the div, nothing more. Yeah. Okay, so we have the HTML. Now what's left is to also get some CSS for this. So go ahead and create a style.css. Sorry. And if you remember, we have already linked this. I've already linked this to my style.css right here. So as you can see, it's already linked to the style sheet. So let me just go ahead and grab all these styles just like that and go ahead and paste it in here. Don't worry, I will leave all these links down in the description, so you're all good. You're all good. So the index.php, as you can see, this is basically just a standard form. The method is post and the action is index.php, which means the logic to process this form is already on this particular page. I have an input for the phone, of input type text, placeholder, enter your phone, and the class doesn't really matter. And the same thing for the message. And for the submit button, it's an input type submit, the value submit, and the name is submit. That's all you need for that particular markup to work. Now let's go ahead but if I refresh this, if you have noticed, if I refresh this particular page right now, this code will run once again. So that is not what I want to happen. I want this code to run only if I have clicked on the post button. So we're going to be getting rid of all of this, because I want to actually set this up in a much better format. So let me just first of all put that if statement so that this stops running unless I click on the button. So let me just do an if statement right here, and I'm just going to say if is set, which means if I press the submit button. So I want you to now send all this data via the post global variable, and this is just telling it is the submit button. Yep. And let me just do it like this. No, sorry. Yeah, just like that. And then just go ahead and grab all this code. So grab all this code up to this point, Control X, and then just paste it within the if statement. And just like that, tumetoa kiburi ya hiyo code, it will not run until I click on submit. So where I wrote code to send SMS, this is where I want to write my better code, my better formatted code. So let me just go ahead and put this here. and put this here as well. And let's just go ahead and open some PHP tags. And we're all set. So let's get started. So first of all, this particular code needs to be only run same thing as before. So let me just do this very fast. I don't have to explain anymore because we've already done so. And now let's start writing this code. So the first thing, if you notice up here, we have this particular endpoint in which we send our request to, which is this URL. So I'm going to actually put this in its own variable. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to set this to base URL. So base URL. And I'm going to say is right that is it. Then I'm going to go into this and say variable ch, and then I want to initialize the curl. So curl initialize, and then I'm going to pass in the variable base URL, just like that. So what I want to do next is I want to get all the data that we need to make this request. That will be the payload, which in every API you have the payload, which is the data that you send to this endpoint. So let me just I have an auto completion here, so don't be surprised why this is actually working, but I have an auto completion that really helps me out, and this is exactly what you need to do. So what we have done here is we have said that the mobile the value for mobile, and we have assigned it right here to this 11511037, which is not accurate. And the response type, we have set that to JSON, the service name, and the service ID. But the thing is, I don't want these values to be hard coded like this. So I want this to be coming from my particular form. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. Get rid of this as well. And what you're going to do is instead put in variable underscore post, and then open up those brackets and pass in phone, which is actually the variable of the input field. Yeah, just like that. So the mobile will be assigned to the value that we insert into the phone input field. So that is pretty self-explanatory. So let's do the same for the message. Let's do the same for the message. So get rid of that as well. There was a comma that should exist there. And now variable underscore post, and of course just pass in message. Sorry. So yeah, that's it for the array. So we basically have this payload set up, but one thing is we need to actually have this in a JSON format so that the API can be able to understand what exactly that we are sending. So let's go ahead and do that. So just create a new variable, let's say variable payload, and we're just going to say JSON underscore encode. So we're encoding this data to JSON format, and then pass in variable data in there. And just like that, you already have this as JSON. So let me just paste in the rest of the code, and then I'll explain to you what they actually do. So let me just go ahead and do that. So the rest of these are just basically file configuration to be able to make this request. You can go ahead and do a little bit of research about curl so that I'm not spoon feeding you everything. And as you can see, you define the headers as well right here, which is the content type has to be of JSON, and the API key, this was already written in the documentation, so you have to set it up in this particular format. So everything else seems to be working just fine. Let me uncomment this. I don't know why it's commented. And let's give it a test run. Let's give it a test run. And hopefully everything works. So let's go ahead and get rid of this initial sample code by the particular API. So just get rid of everything inside here. We're not going to need that anymore, hopefully. Okay, so let's head back into our browser and go into our page and run it again. So let's test that out one more time. So you know the drill. Let me open up my phone and turn on that particular application to record the screen. Okay, so it's recording. So let's go ahead, put in the same phone number and say hello devs. Consider subscribing to this awesome channel, and hit on submit. So status ID, it's successful, and as you can see, hello devs, consider subscribing. So if you got value from this tutorial, consider subscribing. As the message says, I will leave all the links down in the description, as well as the full source code, so you can go ahead and check that out. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next